the chat. You should be able to see the little chat below, because this is also where you're going to type in your questions. We're going to have a lot of sexy, cool, open, liberated money talk, which is what freedom is all about. You should be able to see the little chat below, because this is also where you're going to type in your questions. Okay, let me work out how to... sexy, cool, open... Hang on, I've got YouTube streaming on my computer. This is so funny. That's why I need somebody else in my team doing that stuff. There we go. We are here, and it is fabulous to be here with you. So as you connect in, go and find that chat. Let us know you're here. And that is where you're going to put your questions in. So welcome if you've never met me before. My name is Ann Wilson, aka The Wealth Chef. I am the author of the best-selling book, The Wealth Chef, and the creator of Financial Freedom University, considered one of the most comprehensive online trainings there are for financial well-being, liberating yourself, getting your money working hard for you, and really getting this key aspect of your life together. And I am so thrilled to do this. We do the WOW workshop usually once a year, really as a gift to welcome you in and say, there's this other world. There's this world where it's not full of hustle. It's not full of stress and anxiety and working hard for money. Unfortunately, it's a world that very few of us were ever exposed to. Most, if you're like me, we grew up in a world of get a good job, work hard, hope for the best, try and navigate this crazy world of money. And if you could just earn more, hopefully you'll be okay. If you could just deprive yourself, hopefully you're okay. Or better yet, just, stick your head in the sand and then hope it'll all be okay. Because after all, our old age, retirement is somewhere down in the future. And often when we think about financial freedom or financial independence, that's often not even a concept we know what it means. And so when these things stay at such wishy-washy terminology and frameworks in our mind, it's impossible for us to first even know what it means for us and then go, wow, that's something that I can actually create and do. So it doesn't become a conscious goal we can create. And even if we say, well, I wish I wanted some more money, or I wish I didn't have this financial stress and anxiety, it's more just phrases that are turned off, because often we don't believe there's any other way than what we've been shown, what everybody else around us is doing. And so that is why we do the World of Wealth workshop, where for these 2 weeks, I'm going to invite you in and show you that there literally is a different way. There is a way where money works hard for you, not the other way around. There's a way where you know for certain that you can live life on your terms. You're going to be able to do what you want with assets paying for your lifestyle. You're going to have that peace of mind, that breathing space to know that, the bills are covered and sorted so that you can actually do what you're meant to be doing, which is living your life fully. And so that is why we are here. So part of this, there's the training, and I'm going to walk you through some of those components and how to get the most of it. And then we have these open Q&As where I'm here to answer any questions you have on the training so far, or any blocks or challenges around in your money world. Because one of the challenges, most of us don't have a clean place to go and speak about money. Most people are broke, gather around the water fountain at work or with their friends, and they bitch and moan about not having money, or bitch and moan about having debt. This is a bit like getting your weight loss and fitness advice from your fattest, unhealthiest friend. Not a good strategy. But also, if we don't know where to go, we don't. So often money conversations are fraught. They're either about the stress and strain of it, or we just don't talk about it. In many relationships, people just don't talk about it. And so that is why you are here, and there's this opportunity for you. So for those of you here, if you've got a question, start typing that in the chat box so I can support and serve you on this. But before we dive in any further, let me find and open up the pages where you're going to find the training, so I can give you a little bit of exposure to that. Fantastic. So why am I not seeing it yet on my share button? It should be coming up shortly. There we go. It is. Here we go. So on my screen, you should be seeing what we call our concierge page. And this is where you get all of the information about the World of Wealth workshop, where you can find the schedule, the timeline, see what's coming up and where. Now, the World of Wealth experience happens over these 2 weeks, but what we have done, because we know life is full, how do you fit this in? We have made the first 3 trainings, we've pre-recorded them, we have edited them up into fantastic bite-sized chunks so you can dive in and get the most from it. But we release these in a staged way so that you don't get overwhelmed, so that you can come on in, consume, because the reality is money weaves through every aspect of our life and our lives are full. So we also want to make sure that your wealth training and experience is something that can fit into your busy life. When you've got a snippet here, where you're cooking a meal, where you're going for a walk, whatever it is, you can just add that next element in, because it's consistent small steps that create our wealth, rather than believing, well, one day when we've got more money, one day when we've got more time, one day when, life isn't so hectic, because we all know that day never, ever arrives. And so at the top here, you'll see these are the 6 training components that you'll be getting. And so the first 3, the pre-recorded, available for you, and we release these on these dates. So part 1 is already available for you. Then part 2, which is all about money flows, and I'll cover a bit on each of them, the 7 steps of the wealthy way. Then what is really key is on Sunday, the 28th of July, make sure you write this down. We have a live training. And this is where I really bring the key and most important elements of how to create and live your wealthy life all together in one impactful live training. So get the timeline for that. The team will be putting it on the sheet. It's not there at the moment, but exactly when that is on, so you can get that and make sure you attend that, because that's one of the most important things. So we bring that all together, and you can catch up on these other trainings as you go. Then we've got another live training where I'm going to take you through. So on Sunday, you're going to know what are these 5 components, how to bring everything that you've learned in those first 3 trainings together and implement it in your life. Because knowledge is one thing, but it's applied knowledge is the thing that we take action on. But the reality is, life comes along. I call them the mafias of the mind. There are these things that take us back to the familiar life we know. And there are 5 common, what I call wealth killers, that I've seen prevent most people from achieving their wealthy life. The devastating reality is less than 5% of the world's population ever gets to experience true financial liberation and freedom. That financial independence, where they can live the lifestyle they want with all the money that they need being earned for them by their assets. And that is my goal for you. So while it's important for you to know all the steps to create it, you've also got to know what might sabotage it. So being pre-warned is way that you can be prepared for them, that when they come along, you go, okay, I'm not going to fall for that thing. And how do you stay and grow and thrive? And then one of the most important things is knowing how to make great decisions in a wealthy life, because we're all constantly being asked to make decisions about our time, our money, our energy. And often we think our destiny is created by these big life-changing decisions that we make, who we get involved in a relationship, what we study, what career we choose to do, whether to have kids or not, where we're going to live. We think these are the things that create our destiny, but it's actually our moment-by-moment decisions. How we use these 3 vital resources, our time, our energy, and our money, define where we end up. So knowing how to make decisions moment by moment and with bigger ones, so that we're actually making the choices and the decisions that are going to give us the life that we want, is one of the most important wealthy skills. So you get a bonus workshop on that as well. That's happening on the 2nd of August. And a couple of you have also been asking, yes, we do also open registration to Financial Freedom University. It is the #1 online training and coaching support program that gives you absolutely everything you need. All of the training in every asset class, how to manage your money, how to get out of debt, how to get clear on what you want, things like your insurances and wills, all of it together is covered in this vast training that is also accompanied by live Q&A, coaching with me and with my Wealth Chef coaches. We will be opening registration for that. But before we get that, don't let that distract you. I really want you to consume the enormous amount of value that is right here for you in the world of wealth. And so for each of these parts, there is a different page that you can access that will then give you the training. So here is the schedule. And now part 1 is available already. So as you can see, if you click on that, will take you to the videos. And for each of them, we've shown timestamps where they are. When you play those, you can pause and move forward and to sections. And you can also jump down here on the side menu to see where you are. So again, you can fit this in the time you have available. But really aim to go through all of this. Each of these sections are designed to build on top of each other, and you are getting one of the most comprehensive wealth trainings right here free, so use it. Now, all of these training sessions also have a workbook. They have action sheets that go with them, so make sure you go and download your resources. Now, one of a really important activity for you to do, which is a standalone activity in part 1, is understanding your big why. And there's a worksheet that goes with it. I'm going to ask the team to actually just add some of these worksheets in and on so it's clear where you can get these. Because what is super important is if you don't know why you're doing something, it's very hard to stay focused and make the choices around. That's also about making empowered decisions. We've got to know why we're doing something. This is the most important motivation. We've also got to know the consequences of doing something or not. I love a saying that goes, there are no obligations in life. There truly aren't. So when we start noticing all the shoulds and shouldn'ts, I want to say, you don't have to create your financial freedom. There's no obligation to it. There's no moral standing around here. But there are consequences. There are consequences of not getting on top of the money stuff, not getting assets working for you. And those are the consequences we've got to get really clear on. And this is part of the big why. No, why do we want it? That's really getting clear on what your juicy, wealthy, free life entails. But also why? What is that going to enable you to do, feel? But also the consequences of not doing it. What is the impact of you not sorting out your money stuff in the next year, in the next 2 years? What's the impact on those you love, your family and friends? And so these two components, and this is why we cover them so deeply in this first part, getting clear on what the bleep do you want and why do you want it? Because often the first question people ask me, dive on in and they'll go, what should I invest in? Tell me your one investment tip. And I go, I can tell you the greatest investment tip in the world. Well, one, that doesn't exist because you're going to discover it's a portfolio of assets that create freedom. But two, without you understanding what you're creating and what you're doing is irrelevant. This is like going and saying to an artist, a really great artist, what is your favorite paintbrush and favorite, paint color, your hue? Well, it depends. They're all just ingredients that go into creating this masterpiece, this artwork. So you've got to get clear on what you're creating. What is the artwork? And then we go and look at, well, which paintbrush or what do elements in, and those are the assets that serve you. So really get clear on this. And so part 1 is all about the what and the why. And I hope you have dived on in and understood what is freedom for you. And then what does your wealthy life look like? And this is so key because especially in this day of social media, but it's always been like this with advertising, but even beyond that, it is very easy for us to lose who we are, to not even know what we want. We grow up being told by our parents, by society, by teachers, by religious groupings, by media, what we need to be doing in order to be okay. I'm going to say not even successful, often just to be okay, just to be loved, just to feel safe, how to fit in, what we should be wearing, what the latest fashion, what home we should be living, to be deemed acceptable, to be deemed worthy, to be deemed, effective. And so the very first thing, stopping and going, hang on, this life that I'm creating, the churn, the treadmill that I'm on, the things that I'm spending my time and my money and my energy on, are they actually aligned to me, my heart, my soul, my dreams, my desire? Am I making sure that the life I'm building, that I'm using these resources, time, money, and energy to create, is that actually the one I want? Or am I doing this convoluted maze of ticking off the things that I should do for some time in the future to live the life that I really want? And this is why it's so important to understand the difference between an ends goal and a means goal. And often when I'll say to people, what do you want? They will, oh, I want to create a great business. Great. Why do you want that? Well, I want to make a lot of money. Well, why do you want a lot of money? Well, then I can, pay off my parents' home, or I can do X or Y. And so very often what happens is we get hooked on our next step goal, what is called a means goal. Well, I want more money. I want to so that I can pay off my debt. Great. Well, if you've paid off your debt, then what? And we don't go further along and go, well, what's the end point that we want to get to? And this is why I talk about those 4 freedoms, the freedom of location, that you can live wherever you want. You can feel safe and secure, and you can have access to opportunities. So vital and important. You can't do that without financial resources to enable you to have that. Freedom of time, to be able to use your most important and precious thing called your time, how you want, when you want. So go and look at those 4 freedoms and really understand as end goals, what do those 4 freedoms mean to you? Let these re-trigger your wealthy life. What does that mean for you? And often it can feel hard to do this because we go, well, but don't we have to do X or Y? Well, maybe we realize that it's been a long time since we even allowed ourselves to dream and know who we are. So allow the process to also be messy. Don't get hung up on the perfect vision, the perfect, why you want to create this. Because for most of us, we have to recreate almost the trust with ourselves, the belief that we can actually have and live the life that we really want on our terms. So coming back to the means and ends goal, money is a means. It's never the end. You're not here to create a big pile of money to swim around in like Duck McScrooge. That's not the point. I mean, it could be a fun thing to do, to pull up, but I think it could be pretty gross too. The point is, money is meant to serve and support the life you want. And so this is why it's so important we have the end in mind, because then we can work out, well, how much money we need. What is the price tag? Because so many people were just caught into the more, if I can just have more, if I can just have more. And it becomes this more monster. There never is an enough point. And there's a beautiful quote that I also love saying, the opposite of scarcity is not abundance. The opposite of scarcity is enough. When we know what is enough for each of us, finally, we have a goal to head for. Finally, we can put a plan together. Because when it's just I need more money, we can't even start that journey. We have to be able to get specific and define it. And this is why this first training, understanding the core elements of wealth, are so important. Where are we headed? What is it that we're creating with our life? How does money input in that? How much do we need? And why are we doing this? Is so important. So sure, join the Facebook. Let us know what's resonated, any questions you have, and dive on in. Great. So let's look at your questions. Anthea, so great for you to be here. I'm thrilled. I attended one of your trainings before, and my question is that I'm now in Hungary and Italy, and I need to know a safe broker where I can set up my portfolio. I used to use Hargreaves and Lansdown, but they require UK residency, and I've relocated. I am ready to start investing, but I need this first step, please. I'm also horrified at the charging structure, and I'm looking at a more reasonable charging structure. I know that my cost that are big charges eat investment returns. Well done. I'm so thrilled, because one of the 3 things we can control in our investings, it's our contributions, it's our consistency, and our costs. But we go deeper into that in training number 2, so make sure you watch that as well. And she says, my pension pot actually shrank. So my experience of longer term investment was very far from the theory of how things were supposed to work. Brilliant, Anthea. So what if you've got your Hungry Down platform, and if you've got any ISA investments, or you've got your SIP in place there, although you have relocated and you're living between Hungary and Italy, you can still keep that platform open. It will be harder for you to create one, but if you've got it, you leave those investments there, especially if you've got an ISA or a SIP there. So that's just what to do with your UK-based investments. Now, in Europe, the platform that most of our Financial Freedom University students in Europe use is a platform called Degiro, Degiro. It is a great low-cost platform where you can invest in exchange-traded funds, which are your index trackers, and you'll put that portfolio together. And absolutely, understanding what the costs are our investments are absolutely key. And for those of you who haven't, as I said, training number 2, really get clear, because I share with you my number 1 equity investing strategy. I've covered the 10 asset classes, that assets and what they are in training number 1. So make sure you go and watch that. And now in training number 2, I'll show you, well, where do you start in equities and why costs matter and the difference they make in terms of getting your return. Great, Eugene. Great to have you. When you're stuck, and I'm sure what to take to go further, how can you start? And will this journey give clarity, or will it only be achieved when you've reached financial freedom? Oh, I love this question, Eugene, because freedom is actually always just one step away. So let me explain what that means. Let me say that again. Your freedom is always one step away. That's all it is. I think it's impossible to be a human adult and not have found yourself on a path that you followed, maybe blindly, maybe intentionally, but it's turned out to not be where you want to be or should be. Things haven't turned out as planned. Maybe there's relationships, there's careers, there's jobs, but also with our money. No one ends up with a goal to be what I call fabulous, fab, fat, anxious, and broke. We don't set those sort of goals, whichever ones they are. But sometimes just because of life's happening and we neglect certain things, we find ourselves in a place that we don't want to be, where things haven't worked out. And we go, what is the step we do? And often what can happen is we start beating ourselves up about the choices we've made, the path we've come. Now, it's important to get some information and take data like, curious, what, if I did a different path somewhere else, but regret doesn't serve us because we can't undo the path we've come. What's also really important to know is we don't need to retrace the steps that we've been on in order to get to freedom. The first thing we need to do, which is exactly what you said, Eugene, is recognize that the path we're on is not taking us to the life that we want to be living, that it's not serving. Fantastic. What a profound and important step. Because so often people get stuck into the sunk cost fallacy. Oh, well, I've got this, I might as well keep going. Oh, well, I've been, in this relationship for that amount of time, or I'm holding on to this business, or I've been doing X. So, rather the devil I know than the devil I don't. And we'll just keep going further and further into the devastation of their life. And so the first step to say, no, this is not taking me to where I want. This is not serving me. Maybe we've got into a habit of using debt to fund, whether it's lifestyle or just emergencies. And now the most important point is to say, no more, stop. Okay, this is not the path I need to be on. And then the one step is to step off that path. And that one step will look different from each person. So if somebody's really found themselves in a debt cycle, is to say, okay, my first step is to say no, and I have to change that debt habit. And this is why it's important for us to understand that our wealth is created by an ecosystem of these 4 components working together. Because whilst there is let's say, an idealistic or ideal balance between our inflows, our outflows, our assets and liabilities, understanding how each of them work together is key. But when one is very out of sync, or maybe all 4, I've got to say, well, which is that first step? So this is the first step, is always to say, no longer on the path I've been. And that one step, turning direction and heading towards where you want to be, is just the one step we can make. And so the freedom happens as soon as we've made that choice. Whilst there's a certain quality of life you'll be able to live once you're financially free, yes, you'll be able to do more things because you've got assets working for you, the peace of mind. But that freedom of peace of mind, no, comes immediately when you say you have made the choice to back you. You are on the path that is going to take you to where you want to be. You're no longer just going to stay in the path where you've been. And so you can also go, well, I don't know exactly what I'm wanting. But when we just say that in itself, that awareness is huge. So say, okay, I'm choosing to get off the path I've been on. That is not where I'm headed. It's foggy and murky, and when you're feeling stuck. But what I am going to do is each day, remembering consistency is the small, just take these consistent baby steps. And this is why Financial Freedom University and the World of Wealth training structure that we do is so powerful, because it helps to say, what's just that next step? So that next step right now is just defining what is a financial freedom number. You might say, I don't know exactly what I even want from my life, but you might have an inkling. And that will give a pointer to have a target, which is better than nothing. Now you can start heading towards it and it will refine. And each day you can ask yourself, if I remembered I was free, if I knew I was free, what would I be doing? Notice what life, says no to and what it says yes to. And it will start getting clearer and clearer. You'll start feeling more aligned to what your life is as you're also putting in place the money actions. And that's why this is so key. In training number 2, I cover money flows and understanding that your wealth is created by 2 core things, your financial well-being and wealth. You need to have a healthy money flow. So this is how money is flowing through your life. We have to have an inflow. But what is even more important, our wealthy life is created by how money flows out of our life. What are the spend decisions we're making? So slowing down and going, let me actually have a look at where am I directing my money? Often people will take an assessment on their time. Where are we spending our time? Are we being efficient and effective? Are we being productive? Well, we've got to say, where are we spending our money? Are we spending it actually on the things that bring us joy, that light us up? Are we spending it on things that we think we should just to fit in? Or maybe there's a whole lot of unconscious flow that goes out because we're too busy trying to earn money. And so a healthy, wealthy money flow is absolutely critical. One where money is flowing smoothly through, where we spend less than the money that comes in, really important. So these are key principles that we set. And then making sure we're having a wealthy life. And this is called a wealthy spender. And getting rid of all the stuff that isn't. And this is the liberation of the choice. We get to choose where that money goes. So that is number 1, that wealthy money flow. Second key thing is a growing net worth. Our net worth is our assets, our wealth generating assets, and I cover those 10 asset types in training 1, minus liabilities, those debts. Consumer debt has to go. There is no place for consumer debt in financial freedom, but there are different kinds of debts. There are neutral debts and expansion debts. I'll also cover those deeper in training number 3. And so this of a growing net worth lets you celebrate and know that, you've now got a plan. You've got an investment plan. You're accumulating. These assets are growing. And so coming back to the point that it's just one step to your freedom, Eugene, is knowing, when we have a plan and we can see how these components fit together, no longer do we just get stuck in that overwhelm. The clarity comes together, we go, we know the recipe. There's a set of actions that what we've got to do is just show up and keep taking actions to get a wealthy money flow and a growing net worth. And these things together will start creating a wealthier and wealthier and wealthier life. So such a great question. Thank you. And Eugene says, I struggle to use my free time. What is happiness and what or how can I explore what a full life will be? I really get that, because one of the challenges can be in our life, we're so indoctrinated in production, that production and producing is where we get value. If we're not working, there's actually an anxiety can arrive up, because then there's no value. Are we even worthy of the breath we have? So the great thing is, Eugene, we can just lighten up about it. You can start doing little baby steps and treat it as an experiment. You don't have to get it right. You can literally just play a little bit and go, wow, I wonder and try some fun, just crazy things. Lighten up and just go, I'm just going to experiment and get some data. Maybe it's pick up a paint by numbers art set. I actually just see one right here. This wasn't a prop, but I decided to try these the other day. So you can buy these paint by number things. And it's hell of a fun. It was just, to switch off, experiment, go and try little baby things. But often it's things like ask other people, what do they do? Maybe go for a walk on a different path and see what that is. Join some clubs, connect with people, but allow it to be an experiment and come back and go, wow, let me get the data from there. How did that make me feel? Yes, it was fun. No, yes, a bit more. Because when we also allow it to be in a far more playful way, where we lighten up about this. So, just, explore those things. And the last thing I want to add on this, Eugene, well, not maybe the last, we'll come back, but I want to imagine that you are having a love affair with yourself. So imagine if you've just met you and you want to get to know you. What are kind of the questions would you explore? Tasting new foods. What foods do you enjoy? What flavors? And this is the part of reimagining what life could be for ourselves, but really let it be a fantastic treasure hunt that you are discovering who you are, this lover wanting to know every part of you. What are the questions you would ask? What would you go and explore? What are the things you would do? Great. So next question from Eugene is assets and real estate, how to take the next steps. Well, make sure you attend. Training number 2 is going to be available from tomorrow, and I dive on in where to start. Now, equity investing and using index trackers is the most powerful base starting point to get a consistent broad base into your wealth pyramid. And I'll take you through the core investment strategy for that. Now, with that can include real estate assets. And so what's super important is to understand what is your freedom number. So what is that financial freedom number? Then you start going, great. Now let's start building up these assets. Build up first in equities, then absolutely real estate is a fantastic asset class. And I cover in training number 3 a little bit more what's called leverage and using borrowing to increase your returns and increase your ability to control assets. So this is where we use good debt, where we borrow, but it's really important to get rid of any consumer debt first. And then, real estate is an enormous asset class in it of itself, but you can just start bringing real estate into your portfolio through things that are called real estate investment trusts, which is a fund that owns property all over the world. So from a single investment, you can get a global portfolio of property into your equity portfolio very easily. And this is why I say start with your digital investing in index trackers, because this gets the most important wealth habit happening, the habit of consistently investing in assets, the paying yourself first, and you start building up that portfolio. Once that's in place, once that's happening automatically and you getting that consistent contribution in, then you can start exploring direct leveraged real estate, which is owning individual properties, whether that's residential, commercial, all sorts. You can also look at fractional investing, but get that base in place. So Anthea says, in the university, do you tackle inheritance issues problems? Absolutely, Anthea. And you can also, what is your challenge? What is that question right here? So I don't want to go into Financial Freedom University deep, because I'll tell you a lot more about it later on in the week, because I want you to use the resources that are available. But one of the most important pillars, well, not important, they're all key because they hold up your financial freedom, is protection pate, understanding the role of insurances and what are called your wealth documents, your wills, trusts, your living wills, and these things that relate to your two key assets, two key things you have: your body. How do you look after this in terms of your insurances and the things you have? So what to do when you're alive to protect you and those you love and your assets, and then what happens on your death? Because yes, we're all going to pop our clogs. It's inevitable. We're all going to shuffle off this mortal coil. And that's also really important to remember whilst we're creating our financial freedom, is this is one precious life. It's so damn important to, get living it. And that is our big why. So understanding wills and inheritance and estate duty is really key. And then also, if you've received an inheritance, a lot of our viewers, a lot of people join our training to go, well, what to do with an inheritance that they've got or might be coming, because you don't want to be messing that up, is really key. So yes, all of these components form part of our wealthy life. There was a lovely comment on one of a social media posts we had. We were posting the world of wealth, and somebody said, well, I'm a spiritual being. I'm choosing to be spiritual, so I'm not interested in wealth. I'm going, well, that's like saying, what's more important, water or oxygen? Well, ask your body that. It can't live without either of them. There isn't a comparison. And so one of the really important things to challenge is, where do we have beliefs? What are the underlying beliefs? So for this person, what is their belief that spirituality is somehow, or wealth is somehow unspiritual? Money is an exchange of value. That's all it is. And money is a magnifier. If you're a great, generous person, having more money just gives you more opportunity to increase your generosity and contribution. If you're mean and fearful and aggro, money will just expand that. I know a lot of people who've got a lot of money, but they don't have wealth. So wealth is also under having money that serves life. That's the point. It's not for money's sake. I know a lot of people who've got a lot of money and they are deeply anxious and fearful because money magnifies. And so this is why it's so important that we're also working on our inner game, our relationship with life, understanding where are the drivers and our triggers of our habitual fears, anxiety, stresses. What is really going on there? And often it's a disconnection from ourself and life. And what are we believing? And then what is the role of money? Because money will give us access to security, to opportunity, but how we use it defines our lived experience. And this is why we are the most important asset we have in this. So in parallel, you'll see all the way through the world of wealth, we are constantly working on this thing, our inner game, the inner game of wealth. How do we master this crazy thing up here, which is the most amazing instrument we have? But if we allow our brain rather than our mind to drive the bus, often we'll just be full of fear and anxiety and stress. We have to bring the full being, our heart, our soul into this and learn how to manage this thing. And with our apprentices, I've already mentioned, I call them the mafia of the mind. Our mind is amazing, but it makes up shit. It makes up stories. It makes up fearful things. And we've got to learn to be able to differentiate. Okay, what is the story? What's triggered that? And this is why I say wealth is an ecosystem, just like life is. We've also got to understand part of that experiment that Eugene is going to be doing. Gee, what kind of environments take me to a more stressful experience? When I've just done a big holiday trip, a big vacation over in Canada, and I was riding motorbikes and walking and hiking. And I also know, for me, lack of sleep starts increasing my anxieties, take things away, how I eat, this body we get to live in. So when we bring all of these things together, this creates the mechanism for us to be able to engage fully. And it also makes sure that we are directing our money in things that truly serve us and not are driven from fear or contraction. And so I think the greatest spiritual journey we're each called on is to fully learn who we are and what brings us great joy, and then committing to bring that to life. Because I think the only purpose each of us really have is to bring our greatest selves to the world. And that is a self that is filled up, that is full of joy, that is free of that fear and anxiety. Not that they won't come in waves, but we are able to differentiate between what is true and what isn't. And in that point, that is where we meet the world's greatest need. We do not need to prove our worthiness because we already are just by being here. So this is part of the aspect of really going, there is nothing not spiritual about choosing to live the greatest, wealthiest life. And in fact, I would challenge anybody to say you cannot live your greatest spiritual self-discovery without coming clean and healing stories and challenges you have about money and receiving and the stuff that you have associated with that. Because what the world doesn't need is yet one more starving spiritual being depending on the charity of somebody else to bail them out. The greatest thing we can give to the life is making sure that we are not a drain on those we love or anybody else. That is the gift we can do when we show up. And after all, the Good Samaritan could only be a Good Samaritan because they had a bag of shekels. So get your money in service of life, which is really great. Mark, thank you for all the continued generosity. Absolutely appreciate it. And I hope you've dived on in, asked those questions. Let's career on in. We've got a question from Jay Bond who says, what do you think about Roth IRAs versus traditional IRA? Is it too late to change it to a Roth if you're over 50 years old? So absolutely, I love them both. So now for those of you in the US, well, everybody, there are three kinds of investment accounts that you can have. There is your tax-deferred investment account. So this is where governments around the world want people to look after their financial well-being. Why? Because they're broke. They can't look after the aging population in any way. But they also want your tax money now. So they're in a bit of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So most countries you have an opportunity to invest in your retirement, sometimes called a pension, a superannuation, but essentially what I call tax deferred is for a time when you will then later on in life, and that age is usually defined by the government of when you'll be able to access that money. But it's tax deferred because you can invest pre-tax money, you get a tax rebate, and that can go into investments. Now, this is really important to understand whether you call it your superannuation, your retirement annuity, your pension, your IRA. You also want to make sure that you're investing those monies in the most effective way, in the lowest cost, in the highest performing way. So a lot of people think that their RA or their IRA or their pension, it's just this bundled product that they've got to buy in one. And no, that's what we call hideous TV dinner investment. So make sure you watch training number 2 because we're going to this deeper. So in that's your tax deferred, and that's what your IRA is, your traditional IRA. Then you have your tax-free investment pot. So in the US, that would be a Roth. In Canada, it's a tax-free savings account. In the UK, it's an ISA. South Africa, it's also a tax-free savings account. Also in Japan. In Europe, they've got various forms, PEPs, PEPs, depending on the country you're in. And this is where you take post-tax money, but you are able to invest a certain amount of it. There's usually a limit, again, free of tax. So there's no tax on the income generated or on the capital gain. So remember, costs are one of your most important things you've got to reduce, and tax is a huge cost. And this is such a sexy investment account. So Jay Bond, coming back to you, I love a Roth. Because one of the things with a Roth, although it's post-tax money, it goes into your investment pot. And so this is the same with an ISA, tax-free savings account. I'm speaking about the same thing, this tax-free pot. It now grows free of tax, so really sexy. So you get more money from your money. Compounding is able to work more effectively for you. It all adds up. Plus, when you're ready to start feeding off that feast, we talk about eating off those assets, letting your assets pay for your lifestyle, the money that you then take out of your ISA, your Roth, your tax-free savings account, they're all the same thing, just different names, is free of tax. And so while we're planning our financial freedom now, we want to use the benefits of tax deferred, but also the great thing about tax free is there's not tax down the line. So with your tax deferred, you might get a tax rebate now, but you will be paying tax when you start living off the income or off those assets. And so by having both in place gives you a better option. Now, if you're 50 years young, you are absolutely not to old at all, want to be creating your financial freedom and your sexy, juicy life. The reality is we're all going to be living longer and longer. So you've got a good, 40, 50 years still to be thriving and getting your money working for you. So if you can, and for those of you who are in a company which will do matching or contributions into a tax-deferred pension, IRA, utilize that, because that's like getting free money. So utilize that. So J-Bond, absolutely use your traditional IRA if you can, and your Roth. And so you want to having both where you can in that. So really cool there. And of course, you can also roll a traditional IRA over into a Roth as well, and different elements once you've got those in place. And Eugene said, can you repeat the European platform? Oh, my fantastic Natalie. So Natalie is, she's a great program concierge. She's just the biggest supporter of everybody in our tribe and platforms. Yeah, she's given you Desiree. Great. Kerry says, I'm fat and anxious, but no longer broke. I love that. So you're getting truly fabulous. Question from Jackie on YouTube. Should I take my retirement annuity from Momentum and move it to Easy Equities RA? So that is an interesting, big loaded question. So for everybody else listening, what Jackie is looking at doing is reducing the costs, and she's looking at liberating the assets she already have. So again, this is such an important thing. We are so indoctrinated to worship at the altar of income. If I can just earn more, I'll be okay. If I can just get that next contract, if I can get that business working harder. So we look at revenue, we look at top line, we look at income, and often we neglect what is already there. We neglect, well, we can also talk about our health and other elements, but we don't look at the full money flow pattern. So we don't look at where's that money going. Are we actually getting a wealthy life from the choices we make from that money coming in? But what can also happen is we neglect the assets we already have. So now if we go down to the asset drawer, so I'll often use a cross like this, where it's income, expenditures, assets, and liabilities, these 4 ingredients of wealth, which are covered in training number 1. When we look at our asset drawer, often we've got, what's that next investment? Let's create that next asset, that next business, that next passive income we can do. And we neglect the things that are already in our field. Paulo Coelho's beautiful book, The Pilgrim, is all about going off seeking the adventures side to only find that there's this field of gems right next to you always. And one of those gems for many people are any investments you already have. And to slow down and take time to evaluate, well, are they actually working for me? What am I actually invested in? What return am I getting? What costs am I being charged? Not only by the investment that I've been put into, but by the platform I'm invested on. And do I then also have a ruddy financial advisor on top of that who's also taking money? In training number 2, I show you the impact of these small amounts are significant. A 2% difference in cost over 20 years will end up in a 70% difference in the outcome you get. So let's understand this power of compounding. And this is why, one of the skills of truly successful people understand the compounded impact of consistent small steps in our health, in our how we eat. It's getting out of this big bang mindset of wanting that crash diet or that one investment, going, you know what? If I can cut out 1%, 0.5% of my costs over time, this is going to make that difference. So 70% difference could mean, you start an investment now, and let's say you start with 10,000. You don't add any more money in. After 20 years of an average market return, that should be around about 190,000. That's just what compounding does. Now, there are always a small amount of fees. So typically in an index tracker investment, you can keep fees well under 1%. So if you just take a compounded 1% cost of that, you should end up with taking home around about 170,000. So not bad, 10,000 to 170. That's just with assets doing the work. But unfortunately, most people have been told that this is complicated and difficult, and it's, time consuming. And so there's this entire industry, the financial and investment industry, which I call the bad actors. There's 2 bad actors, the financial industry as a whole, that create these hideous investment products, which are sold like these cheap lucky packets when we were kids. Like they looked bright and shiny on the outside, and you open it up and there was a crappy little plastic whistle and a couple of sweets in it. Well, most people's investments look like that. They got these fancy names, the Phoenix Rising All Balanced Guaranteed Fund, where you're going to get some feedback, but you can't see what the fuck's inside there. Excuse my language. And it's crap. It serves the financial industry because they make huge fees on it. But most people never ask or don't know to ask or look, what is the actual fees that are being charged on this hideous product? What's it actually invested in? Are my investments getting me at least market returns, if not better? And if not, be far more demanding customer. And then the second bad actors are financial advisors. Most financial advisors are just salespeople of crap products who they're just selling shit to earn a commission and an ongoing trading commission. And most people will say to me, but Anne, my financial advisor, they only charge 1%. Let's go, really, do you understand what 1% means? If you had sat down and this person said, of that 190,000 that your 10,000 will end into, you are going to give me 70% of that. You're going to hand over 90,000 of that. I'm going to do nothing for you. I'm just going to put you into it one. You're going to put all your money. You're going to take the risk. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take 90,000 of that. Would you enter that agreement? No, none of us would, but we're not told that's what it is, because this is the little thing, that little sneaky 1% here and there. Doesn't, what's 1% between friends? Hey, and they're quite a nice person. You know how people say to me, Anne, I don't want to fire my financial advisor. They've been really nice. I'm going, this is not personal. Take responsibility for your money. It's okay. They'll find somebody else to fleece. Now, of course, there are some really great financial people, and I believe in paying good money for good quality advice for things like tax and side, but you do not need a financial advisor to put you into your base investment funds. Index tracker investing is super easy. So when you cut out those costs, you've now absolutely liberated that investment, and now it starts working for you. And this is what's so important, one of the key elements for us to learn to do. So where did we come? Jackie, I haven't forgotten your question. I know we went on a bit of a rant there, but this is what Jackie is asking: to move from a platform, which is an actively managed fund platform called Momentum, which has got very expensive products on there. So the key question, Jackie, is I'm not going to tell you, yes, you must do that. I want to empower you for you to be able to make that decision from a place of knowledge. So what you need to do, Jackie, is go and look at what are the costs, the total expense ratio of the funds that the retirement annuity investments that you're in. Are you also invested through a financial advisor? And if those combined costs are greater than 1%, then yes, you need to liberate the gems that are already in your life and move them to a platform where you can invest in index trackers at a much lower cost. And so that could very well be the Easy Equities RA. And so this is what's really important for us to also know. You don't have to stay stuck. A lot of people don't realize you can invest your tax-deferred and your tax-free investment accounts in low-cost products. You can have a say. You do not have to just take these hideous TV dinner products that are put to you. Anthea said, is there going to be a recording of this? It's really interesting, but I need to leave. Absolutely. We'll be adding that onto the concierge platform. The Q&A will also divide some of these things up into snippets. And of course, it is also on YouTube right now. Great. Rin says, do you have advice on how to adapt these learnings for people who embrace instability and uncertainty? For someone working as a freelance animator who's also experienced periods of being unable to work due to depression, and who's seen the world shaken up by the 2008 financial crisis, by Brexit, by COVID, it seems unrealistic to dream of any particular fixed future picture. However, I'm sure learning sound principles on how to handle money is of use to everyone. How should somebody who embraces instability and uncertainty adapt the material in the world of wealth to better apply in a world of high variability? So welcome just to reality, Rin. And I love the fact that you embrace instability and uncertainty, because actually the only thing that we can be certain of is that things will change. That is the nature of life. I was actually going to share, planning is everything, but the plan is nothing, because the path is never going to be as we see it. But it is important for us to know the broad place we want to end. But how are we going to get there? We need to have resilience, flexibility, adjust on our how. So, Rin, I want to challenge you on your belief that you can't visualize and what is the life that you really want to be living. You do not have to sort of paint, well, I want to live in this kind of a house on that street, on that one. Some people know that for certain, and maybe they'll be able to get that. But what is the feelings you want to experience? For me, for example, being able to contribute to wildlife and conservation and anti-poaching is such an important part of just a value for me. I love nature and wildlife. And for years, I dreamed of being able to spend more time in the bush, in the African bush, and contribute more. So one of the great joys that I have now is by building up my network to a place where I am able to contribute and contribute more than 90% of my asset generated income to the things that I love, because I'm really living the lifestyle. I don't need to increase my lifestyle. That's not the point of being wealthy. It's not just to consume more. It's to get to a point where you can say, wow, I'm living life on my terms. And right now I'm experiencing what I love. And so right now I have a home in the African bush. I'm actually joining you right from it. We'll see if any animals walk past later, and I'll turn the camera out there. And I get to contribute to anti-poaching and conservation and wildlife thanks to the steps I've taken. Now, I also know that I have one of the key things that I've enabled myself to do is that whilst the core element of who I am is really clear, and I love wildlife contribution, I love adventure exploring. I've just come back from motorbiking across the British Columbia, the most amazing mountains. That is also something I love being able to do. The exact elements of what I'll do will shift and change. None of us need to stay stuck. And as you say, the underlying elements are key. And so one of the key things that I explain in training number 2 is why put your assets are the only thing that create freedom, something that can earn and grow in value without you having to be involved. So we want to build up these assets, but we need a portfolio of assets. So what is super dangerous is thinking one job, one business, one investment, one contract is going to be enough. It's not. It's super dangerous. As you've just said, if we only have one source of income and that's it, life happens, COVIDs, pandemics, wars. Hey, flavors change. AI is changing the nature of the world of employment as we're speaking. So a portfolio of assets, and this is why diversification is so important, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be done very easily. And so now you have a portfolio of assets that give you that resilience in different markets. And so why I also share that, yes, it took me 8 years to create my financial freedom from clueless, and I didn't have any clear path to follow or any mentor to guide me. So I could do that in a much shorter time now from what I know. But I've also stayed financially free, and I'm now in my 19th year of being financially free. And I share this because creating wealth and staying wealthy are two very different sets of skills. How do you preserve your assets? How do you manage to be resilient and flexible in what is to be certain of the uncertain world we have in? So that is really key, is you build up this portfolio, but you also build up ways that you manage your money on a day-to-day and a month-to-month basis, and knowing that you need flexibility and resilience. So Rin, one of the key things that we teach is how to create your money management to take into account seasonality of income. If you know you're a seasonal earner, how to build up a cash buffer, which is so vital to factor in that life's unexpected things are going to happen. Let's expect the unexpected. So when people are walking and living on a financial knife edge where they've matched their lifestyle to match their inflow, almost to the dollar, or worse, they're living on debt, that is a terrifyingly dangerous place to be. And this is where people find themselves in financial oblivion, because something comes along and they either have to sabotage their investments and the base that they're building up, because they haven't provided for these other elements. So how you manage your money the money flow, as well as how you're building up your asset base, is really key, because this is how we cater for the to be expected, unexpected events of life, how we cater for knowing that we don't know what the future holds, but yet we can plan our best guess of knowing who we are and being prepared to adjust. And I just want to sort of share. So part of that, end of my holiday, what I hadn't planned on was getting COVID, landing in Istanbul at the end of it in a heat wave of 43 degrees, feeling completely shit and cracking a tooth. So I now had my final week and I literally just landed. So my team was laughing. They're going, God, and really, could we have a bit of a quiet time? So this last week has felt brutal, but you know what? That is just what happens in life. So how do we also come with an energy of going, okay, it is what it is. How do I manage what's going on? I'm deeply grateful that I have the financial resources, that I could get a great dentist. And I said, I'm landing from Istanbul. Yes, I've had COVID, but I'm no longer. I'm going to be getting into your chair. I had a dentist who could have all the equipment because I knew I would need a crown for this brutal intervention. I said, I have to be back in the bush. I'm doing my live World of Wealth workshop. I don't care what you're going to do. He said, okay, we'll make a plan. He got me in that chair. 3 hours later, feeling completely battered. I got in the car and drove up to the bush with my partner. But this is it. It's like, how do we, instead of collapsing in, it's having the framework of financial resources, emotional resources, mental resources, and the resilience to go, things are going to happen. It's the meaning we give them and how we respond to them that creates our wealthy life, because shit's going to happen. It's not all going to go into plan. And yes, this is part of thanks to the dental treatment yesterday, but I'm here and I'm so grateful that it can be. Great. Kirsten said, I'm curious. I landed on this workshop and I'm here to listen and learn. However, I've always heard you need money to make money. How does a person who has little or no capacity, capital investment, or someone who works as a freelancer even start the process without losing a bunch along the way in wrong choices and poorly advised information? Basically, where does one start when one has nothing to start with? Luckily, I have zero debt, which is cool. It is super cool. We call that absolute zero, which is super cool. And it's also the worst approach in financial security, like RAs. So Kirsten, well done for being here. I'm so thrilled that you are first open to possibility, because here's the thing, that is the first step. If we are not even prepared to consider that financial well-being, a place where we can sleep well at night, when we have what we want is available, is even a possibility, even if we don't yet know whether it's a possibility for us, we first got to go, I get that could be possible. Then go, okay, it could be possible for me. And Kirsten, it absolutely is possible for you. And the most important thing, where we started right off with Eugene, is we all have to start the first step from wherever we are. One of the greatest thieves of our wealthy life, of any of our joy, is believing we need to be somewhere other than where we are to start whatever journey we want. Because it's a trap. We do the when then. When I've got this in place, then I will, eat more healthy. When I've got this, then I'll start writing that book. When this has happened, then I'll spend more time with my kids, or I'll have that adventure. And this is the proverbial carrot of the when in front of the donkey. We never ever get there. Most people go to their grave when thenning, and then it's too late. So when we can go, the only place I can ever be to start whatever I want is exactly where I am. That's all right now, right here, is perfect. And so the adage of you need money to make money is true in a way. We need the seed of money, but how much money are you believing you're needing to start? If there's any kind of flow coming in, and if there isn't, then we need to look at, how do we start creating that flow? What are the options for that? Because we do need some money coming in. But it's what you do with what you already have, which is really important, because many people say, Anne, I'll start investing when the kids have left home, when I've got more money, when I've got a better job, when I've got this, and then it's that when then. Instead of understanding the power of compounding, but also the power of a new habit. Because here's the challenge for many people: when more money is coming in, all they've done is continued with their bad, unhealthy money flow patterns. And this is why the money flow video is so important in part 2. So make sure you watch it, because most people end up having an unconscious habit of a break even or borrow more. So no matter how much money comes in, they find a way to get rid of it. Their lifestyle just matches it. So there's never enough to investing. So we've got to understand, first and foremost, wealth is a habit. It's a way of being. And we have to learn a new way of being of where we spend our time, money, and our energy. And so if you've just got £1, $1, €1, £1, and you make a commitment, you say, that gets to stay in my life, and I'm going to fund my freedom first with that. There is such a powerful neurological process that happens to yourself. You're telling yourself firstly that there is enough, that you can stop and some can stay in your life. This is unbelievably powerful. It's not the quantum. It's creating a new way of thinking. You're breaking the when then. You're saying, no, now. And then you go, great. It's a start, but it's a seed. That's all it is. And you know that muscle grows. And then as you start putting your other money management systems in place, your processes of building up cash safety nets, understanding with freelancers and what we variable income. And there's a whole training we have on just how to manage variable income coming in so that you can stabilize your flow and get more consistency happening. That R1 becomes R2, becomes R10, becomes 20. That is the power of action, because now you're learning a new habit. Whereas those people believe falsely that when they've got more money, then they'll suddenly magically start investing. They won't, because they've also never learned how to invest. And this is what's so important. You start with small amounts, less to lose. You start experimenting, but also by following a process that is a proven investment strategy, because you don't have to then waste time, money, and energy following approaches of speculating and gambling. Something as important as your financial well-being is not about gambling. It's not about, hit and miss. It's about, actually, it's quite wonderfully boring. It's about putting just the consistent habits in place and making sure that you are investing in solid investments. And I love, fantastic, Kerry. Thank you. Kerry has also added some great advice for Kerry in there. Anna, who is 57 years young, says, is it too late? Is she too old? And this is a question that I get asked from 17-year-olds, 27-year-olds, 37-year-olds, 47-year-olds, 57-year-olds, 67-year-olds, because it's never actually about the age. It's actually about us believing, are our dreams even possible? It's terrifying to actually dare to hope and dream again, when over and over, maybe you've betrayed yourself. It hasn't worked out. So, Anna, the question is, less, is it too late? Are you too old? It's going, well, what is your alternative? What are you saying? Are you saying that you are prepared to give up on yourself, on your life, on your dream? The next 40 magnificent years that you could very well have. What are you saying to yourself? What is the choice you're making? I share with you that I created my financial freedom in 8 years. Not to brag or boast, and I could do that significantly shorter now, having a wealthy way path to follow. It's about saying, it doesn't matter how far you've gone down any path, how long it's taken, even what time you believe you have left to reclaim yourself. At the core, this is saying, I'm inviting you to say, choose you. Choose to say, no matter how much, what, I am going to live the rest of these amazing, precious lives I have, aligned with money serving me, supporting me, with feeling empowered and free and no longer afraid and no longer scared. So it's absolutely never too late. But I would love you to slow down, Anna, and really ask yourself, what's actually underneath that question? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of daring to hope for the life that you want and it not happening? Often the thing that we're most afraid of is that we will betray ourselves, that we will let ourselves down yet again. Maybe we set off on a goal, we start something, and so then we go, well, you know what? Let me just, let me stay in my familiar suffering, because that feels safe and small. But this is why doing the big why exercise is so important, because in the moment we might say, you know what, stop dreaming, it's too painful, it's too hard. But when we really go to not do this, the consequence of not doing that. What is the cost of that? What is the cost of going to our grave with our dreams, of knowing that, maybe they didn't all come about, but the devastation of knowing that we gave up on ourselves, that is a devastating price to pay. So I love Mandy shared her journey. So she started with Anne at 57 and she's more than doubled her net worth in 10 years. Absolutely. Woohoo! And Mandy looks so ready. And I also want to share, Mandy started running in her 60s. She's been doing marathons and half marathons and amazing things. We have such a great community. It really is wonderful. Mark says, is it advisable to set up a trust for real estate and other investments? So, Mark, the structures we have around our assets, and specifically for asset protection, are going to be so unique and individual, and depending also what country you're in and the size of your net worth. Now, real estate investments are an investment class that is very useful to put inside some kind of structure. Usually, a company structure is more efficient for real estate than a trust, because you can put a lot of expenses through, you can drive different elements there. But what is really important, you're now starting to look at each of our wealth plan is going to be unique. Now, trust structures, so you've got to differentiate out tax efficient structures like company elements and being able to hold assets, so you can have companies that own your investments. As I say, real estate is the easiest one to do that with, but you can even hold your equity investments in a kind of company structure as well. But trusts tend to be about estate planning and about longer term asset protection. And it can be very useful for asset protection, but they tend to be quite expensive. You've got to, and there's so many different trust structures. So it depends on the country you're in and what is available to you. There are also trust structures that are very useful in certain countries that can be triggered on death. So now we're talking more about estate planning. And so where a trust can be created and assets can go into trust for your beneficiaries. These can be very cost effective. This can significantly reduce estate duties on that. You can then have completely different trusts, sort of offshore trust structures in low tax jurisdictions. Now, typically, if you're going to want to start creating that trust structure, you've got to get really good tax advice. And tax advice needs to be individual, and it needs to be somebody in your country who understands your specific country's tax regime and the tax regime of where you're looking at structure. Now, I do have offshore trusts. Generally, you only going to want to even consider a tax structure once you've got a minimum of a million US or £1 million worth of assets, because of the costs associated with those tax structures. But also you need advice on triggering it, because a lot of people end up triggering devastating tax consequences because they haven't really understood the implications. And more governments are clamping down on trusts and so on. So whilst they can be very useful and good to know, get good advice. It's the one financial advice that I'm prepared to pay for very, very well, is the tax advice, because you don't want to fall foul of that. And just understanding things like FATCA, like CRS, which is the Common Reporting Standards, a little bit of element like that. What is really important, though, I see a lot of people being so concerned about minimizing tax that they forget to create wealth. And I say, don't let the tax tail wag your wealth dog. And I see a lot of people create and getting talked into putting really expensive structures and all these layers. And I'm going to have a trust that's going to own these various companies, and then they're going to own the business and the real estate. And they're so busy planning all these structures that they forget to ever fucking actually create the assets and get about. They're like, oh, fantastic, you've got all this shit, but nothing inside. And so whilst it's important to be aware of what could be available, the important basis of building those assets, getting those in place, knowing that you can move things. I've only recently in the last year done a substantial move. Yes, you pay a bit of tax and elements, but you don't have to get it all right up front. And be careful, tax is a quality problem. We only pay tax when we have money to pay tax on income or side. So we want to minimize tax, but not avoid it. The greatest way to avoid paying tax is just never have any money, but that's a pretty crappy way to live life. So hopefully, Mark, that just gives you some ideas without knowing your specific circumstance, where really look at that global approach and what are you trying to do. But as I say, for real estate can be is a great asset class to hold in a company structure. Shelley said so much good and challenging information, actual steps. Fantastic. Great. Well, I'll keep taking that. Mark, what online broker would you suggest for Australia? So in Australia, a lot of our FFUs use CommSec, but also ANZ E-Trade is a good platform. And I think it's Superhero is one of the ones. Natalie, maybe Natalie, Natalie can just share one or two of the other brokers in. So what's key for Australia, Mark, is understanding what you can do with your self-invested super. Looking at a platform about being able to manage, self-manage your super, get that into low-cost index trackers. So really key, but also in Oz, you've got amazing tax breaks on leverage, where you can get those tax rebates on borrowing, not just for real estate, but for equities and portfolios. So, it might be useful for you to, and this might sound weird, but I love Scott Pape's advice and the Barefoot Investor. So he's got some great local Aussie-based understanding of leverage elements with that. So some great things that you can work with in Australia. Kadeja says, Anne, a big thank you for the pre-recorded lessons. I'm able to catch so much more going back and forth on things. Absolutely. And that's why we wanted to do it. You can stop, get those bite-sized chunks. I hope you're taking those actions. And yeah, so also Natalie and the team, let's take some screen caps of these to tell people why they need to go on in and they can get value from this. Eugene says, I live in the Netherlands. Will the course, if I enroll, help me with using the best platform and take me step by step according to Dutch regulations? Because this is overwhelming, especially as I have no knowledge of investing and fearing it. Absolutely, Eugene. And we've actually got a great cohort of Dutch FFUers in our world. And so look at Desjardins, just look at that platform, but don't let it get overwhelmed. But absolutely, and one of the most important things to realize is the principles of wealth and of money are universal. Money doesn't really care whether you speak Dutch or whether you speak Portuguese, what currency it's in. The same universal principles apply, because when we truly start at the level of money is just an exchange of value. Then compounding works whether you believe in it or not. It's like gravity. You jump off a building, whether you don't believe in gravity, you will hit the ground. Well, the same as compounding. Unfortunately, for most people, it works against them, not for them. So all of these principles of solid money management, how do you divide your money up? How do you build up a cash safety net? How do you get out of debt? But also, how do you invest, are universal. The different asset classes, whether it's real estate. Now, of course, there are local tax considerations, but pretty much that's the only local consideration that starts becoming different is tax considerations. But your core investing, what to invest in, absolutely is all there. And that's why it's also great to have a community of people from around the world, different countries, where then come together and help each other on the localized components of what's in those different countries. Great. Jackie said, what type of online businesses can we look into to add to our portfolio? Okay, wow. Well, Jackie, there are so many different aspects of business assets. And this is why it's really important to get first your straight investment assets in place. And then business assets are great to start adding once you've got that pyramid, that base in place. Are we getting that consistent, regular side in? Now, in your online space, there are really three key streams of, let's call them online delivered businesses. And when we're really thinking about businesses, we're thinking of leverage. How do we use technology to deliver the value so we can get the benefit from it? We always understand what is an asset. An asset is something that can work independently of us. So one of the big online businesses that many people look into and have is e-commerce. E-commerce is one of the biggest and fastest growing businesses and sectors there are. Very easy to access and get into in different forms. So it could be everything from Amazon wholesalers to having your own direct Shopify platform. But e-commerce is also a really great side business that you can start small, grow big. You get to scale it how you want. So e-commerce, massive opportunities around there. And again, understand, do the research. There's so many different strategies just in that as well, from white labeling, all elements. Now, the second aspect is SaaS. So SaaS is also called software as a service, really huge growing. So think about all the apps, creating software, technology, AI is making this available where people go in. Now, you need to be interested in these different elements. And this is really key. When you start deciding what you're going to focus on as what we call your acceleration assets. So I'm going to take one step back. On your wealth journey, the very first step you need to do is become an accumulator. And you need to get your base core habits of wealth in place. Your money management properly sorted out. Your consumer debt being blitzed or eliminated from your life. Your consistent, regular investing in your paying yourself first base. This is the automated almost system that you get working for you to create your wealth, making sure you're being a wealthy spender, eliminating the expenses that aren't serving you, really getting clear of what you can get rid of so you can be that wealthy spender and get the most from your life. This is the first really important stage. Are you tracking where your money is going? Do you have your balance sheet, your income statement? Do you have that base regular investing? Once that's happening, and now you've got that, then you can start looking at what we call the accelerator phases, how to use leverage, how to bring different businesses in place, how to do flipping and strategies to add big chunks of money into your asset drawer. But there's no point trying to do those if you don't have a good solid base in place. And this is so important. We've got to get that solid base in place. And now, as you start exploring these, you've got to go, let's say you might say, okay, real estate is where I really want to go. I want to use leverage, so borrowing for real estate. I want to do developments, just real estate in itself. I want to do flipping. So flipping is where you buy a property and then you force its appreciation, you increase its value, or you buy it below value market to sell it on. So you're trading, but you're trading not to consume that money, but to add money to your asset drawer. So now this accelerates your time to freedom. Or you might say, great, I want to add in some businesses that can generate income without me being involved in that value exchange. I'm going to use leverage. I'm going to use digital systems. So e-commerce is that. Your system does the selling and the distribution, the buying. SaaS is creating software like apps, stuff that can add value and you get subscriptions. And then the third are knowledge-based businesses. Basically, the Wealth Chef is a knowledge-based business where you sell information, knowledge, and a massive expanding asset class. Now, within that, there's also sub-assets in that on the digital world. And a great one is affiliate marketing, where you sell other people's products. You understand elements. So there's a huge area of let's say, technology leveraged businesses, which you can look at bringing in, but you only start bringing those in once you've got a base. And yes, we have an entire module just on all these businesses in Financial Freedom University. But as long as you understand where does it fit in, and you understand the difference between a cash flow business versus an asset business, have you got a business that's creating money coming in, or is it something that you're intending to sell? A lot of people say to me, and I've got a business asset, I'm going to add that to my net worth. I'm going, great. Well, do you really believe you can sell it? On what basis? How have you got that valuation? Most people's businesses are fantastic cash flow machines, but because they don't know what their business is, they're just spending all the money. They're reinvesting in their business. But instead of having the wealthy habit of making sure they're getting money out of that business and creating assets that will actually serve them. So these are some of the nuances of adding in these other elements. Gadia says, where do I find the AI app and spoke about playing with your different ages so that I can post it in the Facebook group? Ah, great. Natalie's already sorted you out there. Fantastic. Rin, thank you for this live Q&A and all the resources. Brilliant. Go and dive on in. Kirsten said, my why, I want to be able to contribute finances to research in polyvagal and embodied approaches to recovery from disordered eating. Fantastic. And I want to be able to travel at any time to my family members who live all over the globe. Absolutely. And I want to live in enoughness to be able to serve life at its highest self. Oh, And that just sounds so aligned. Absolutely, Kirsten. Fantastic. And thank you for sharing your why, because it can feel deeply vulnerable. Because we're often in a place where, we might feel we might be criticized or judged. Hell yes. Fantastic. Well, we have had a wonderful, big, juicy Q&A session. Thank you for showing up for you, for the world of wealth, and really honor yourself. Now, dive on in. We'll have the next training. It's going to be available from tomorrow. We have got a lot of content to go. We've got another Q&A happening on Thursday, then another one happening on Saturday. But make sure you join me on Sunday for the live How to Thrive and Stay in the World of Wealth, where we bring this all together and make sure this is locked in and you are heading to financial freedom. So thank you for choosing you and choosing to be in the arena with me. Bye, everyone.